Welcome to the Empowerment Hour podcast, your digital global classroom where women of all backgrounds, ages, and career levels tune in for their weekly dose of inspiration and motivation. I am Nancy Ruffin, your host and very own personal success coach. Whether it's business, family, or both, my mission is to help you discover your purpose and take inspired action so that you create a life where you feel fulfilled and empowered. If you're ready to start living on purpose, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey guys, so it's your girl, Nancy Ruffin, your personal success coach. And thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Empowerment Hour. So first, before we get started, I want to address something that many of you have been contacting me this week about, and that is the change to the intro of the show. And I forgot to actually mention this on last week's podcast. And how ironic, because last week I was talking about branding and the importance of keeping your audience and customers abreast of any changes that you're making to your brand. And then here I go, making a change and not keeping you guys all in the loop. But in any case, yes, I did change the intro because I've been contemplating with the idea of changing the format a bit for the podcast. And one of the things that I've been thinking about doing is, instead of publishing every week a new podcast, to switching to a bi-weekly schedule. And not that I would then be limiting the amount of content that I'm bringing you, but in between those weeks, what I would instead be doing is I would be doing the podcast like I normally would on Mondays, but then I will also be doing an IG Live and a Facebook Live that same week to talk visually about the podcast episode for that week. So what it is really is me giving more of myself to you guys, just in a different format. So instead of dropping new episodes every week of the podcast, they would be bi-weekly, just to kind of give the podcast episode a longer life and then allow you guys and my audience to engage with me in different ways that make it more personal, right? So if I'm on IG Live or if I'm on Facebook Live, then you guys can kind of ask me questions. We can talk about specific things that I touch upon on that week's podcast. And in that way, we get more engagement. Now, this is something that I'm thinking about. I am going to test it probably for the month of April to see how it goes. And if it's successful, then we will keep that. And if you guys tell me that you absolutely hate it and you want me to continue dropping new episodes every week, then I have to listen to what you guys want and I will go back to that. But in an effort to kind of really make this change and make it noticeable, that was why I changed the intro a bit. I changed the music, just kind of give it a newer feel, right? Especially because this week's episode, we're talking about spring cleaning and all of the things that kind of come with the season of spring, right? It's like the season for rebirth, that we start seeing the flowers grow back in. You hear the birds chirping. It's like, Mother Nature is preparing for summer. And so I wanted to talk about how we need to do some spring cleaning, right? And so what you need to do to declutter, ditch, and develop so that you can live your best life. Because I think that we tend to hold on to a lot of unnecessary things that we should have thrown out seasons ago, right? We're still kind of saving for whatever reason with the hopes that we're going to use things again. And in fact, we probably are never going to use it again. And all that is doing is taking up space. And when you take up space, you're not allowing room for other things to come into your life. And so what and that statement could be applied to kind of any facet of your life. Sometimes we hold on, to old relationships, not because they're providing anything of substance or of service in our lives, but we hold on to them just because we've had them for so long. Even if they're toxic, even if all they are is filled with drama, right? We hold on to them because it's what we're familiar with. And so I'm going to actually go in this episode in stages or in subtopics, and just give you some things to think about for spring cleaning your life, right? And whether that's your personal life, whether that's your career, whether it's your relationship, with your friends, or your romantic relationship, there's stuff that needs to go. And there's no better time than the springtime, to do that, because then you free up your summer, right? And then by the time the end of the year comes along, you would have already been preparing yourself for the new year. So the first thing I want you guys to do is really make an inventory of everything that bothers you, right? Or everything that clutters your home, your work life, your leisure time, your finances, your relationships, right? Being able to do a real in-depth assessment of the things that no longer serve you in all of these different areas of your life. Once you identify those things and once you let them go, you are going to feel like a huge weight has been lifted from your shoulders. Now, for example, look at your finances and what are you spending your money on, right? What are some things that you're wasting money on, right? Things that you're buying that are not adding any value to you. They're not adding any value to your business, to your personal growth, to your development, to your health, nothing, right? Are there things that you're wasting money on? And that money that you're wasting, can it be applied to maybe some of the debt you may have, right? Because I think that finances and debt is not something that we make a priority in our lives. But I think that it's something that should be a priority, because the older that you get, the more you want to be able to do with your life. And if you are being boggled down by debt, it's going to be really hard to do things, right? So I want you to start thinking about your finances. Look at how much outstanding debt you have, and then figure out a budget on how you can start paying down that debt. And maybe what you might have to do is look at the card that you might owe the least on, and with the highest APR, and focus all of your extra money, if you have some, on paying that card down, right? Because if you have, I don't know, maybe if the debt that you have, like the least amount of debt on one of your cards, say is $1,000, then what you could do is pay the minimum amount on any of your other credit cards, but increase what you're sending to that $1,000 card so that you can knock that card out maybe in a few months. And then you do that with all your credit card debt. You focus on paying one off, where you're paying more money to that card and still sending the minimum payments on the rest of your cards, just because you don't want to screw up your credit. But that's the quickest and easiest way to start paying down your debt. And I talk about finances first because if your finances are not in order, then you're going to be stressed, right? Because money is a stressor for a lot of people. And so if you have your finances in order, everything else is easier to manage. For example, decluttering your home, that's really easy. Well, maybe not, because there's some people who are hoarders, and that has more to do with mental than anything else, because you have attachment issues and you can't let go. And for those things, you might need to see a therapist. But take a quick inventory of your house. And are there things that you no longer use that are just taking up space and cluttering up your space? And this could be old furniture. This could be old clothes. I mean, anything. I will tell you, my husband is the biggest hoarder. And trying to get this man to throw anything away is like, I don't know, trying to take a toy out of a baby's hand, right? He will fight me tooth and nail. And so what I've ended up having to do is just throw shit away on the sneak, like without him realizing, because if I bring it to his attention, he will not let me throw it away. He has serious attachment issues. Not sure where they stem from, but look, I need space in my house, and I cannot have all his mess cluttering up things in this house. So do a quick assessment of your home, see what you can throw away, see what you can donate. Maybe you can sell some stuff, right, on eBay, and then use that money to pay down some of your debt. Honey, you got to get creative. Somebody's trash is another person's treasure. So you never know. Also, decluttering your work life, right? Like, how's your desk looking like? Do you have stacks and stacks and stacks of paper? Because I will tell you that a cluttered up workspace just drives me nuts. And the thing is that when you have so much clutter around you, it's almost like you're inviting clutter into your life. And then that's what the universe is going to give you. And so you're always going to feel like your life is just full of messiness, right? So start decluttering all of these other things around you, and you will see little by little, your life will start becoming a little bit clearer, right? And you won't be as maybe confused or as stressed, or you won't feel as weighed down, because you would have gotten rid of a lot of these unnecessary things that you've been holding on to, and this is a really good time too to also do a pulse check with the relationships in your life, right? And so maybe what you need to do is make a list of every single person in your life, in your close, immediate, life, people that you have somewhat of a relationship with. And this is, family, friends, close or key acquaintances, work colleagues. Make a list of all these people in your life, and then circle the people who mean the most to you. When did you last see or talk to them? Right? Think about that. Who do you spend most of your time with? whoever happens to invite you out this week, which may mostly be casual acquaintances, or those who you really value, right? I know that there are some people who feel out of obligation to attend every single event that they get invited to because they don't want to disappoint people. But when you're doing that, you're wasting your time that could be better spent with those people who really mean something to you and who are important to you. And I know that when it comes to work, it can get tricky because you have to play office politics sometimes, but you have to remember too that at the end of the day, work is work and your personal life is your personal life. And you have to make sure that you are giving time to the people who you have deemed as being the most important people in your life. And I say that because there was a time in my own life where I think I was neglecting some of the most important people in my life. And I was lucky in that they felt comfortable enough to let me know when I was not fulfilling my duties as a friend. And great, luckily, and I'm grateful that they kind of called me out on it. I was able to recognize it and we were able to have discussions so that we both came to a point where I committed to doing better, but that they also understood that my not seeing them had nothing to do with not wanting to see them, but more with the fact that I am, and I was, and I still am, really committed to building my brand and doing this work that I do. And so sometimes this work was taking up a lot of my time. And since then, I've learned to set really good boundaries so that doesn't happen as much. But we have to be mindful of, who we are investing our time with. And sometimes we're, wasting time on the wrong people. So I just want you to really think about that. I want you to think about those relationships that you're investing time with that are not reaping any benefits for you. And if they're not reaping any benefits for you, then it might be time to reevaluate that relationship and put it, into the back burner, because that's not going to be your focus, right? So you remove yourself out of situations that bring you no value. And in doing so, you allow, or you're now making space for those relationships that do bring you value, right? Audit your circle, right? Break up with toxic friends. Believe it or not, some of your closest friends are hating on you, and they're not going to come right out and tell you that they're hating on you, but it's going to manifest in other ways. And so they will make you feel guilty about what you're doing. They will not support you in the things that you're trying to do. They will be negative about everything. It's the toxic friends. They're real, guys. They're real. And sometimes it's a hard decision to make, but sometimes you have to let them go. And I say that because usually these toxic friends are in a bad state themselves, right? So that saying, misery loves company? That's exactly what that is. When people are miserable in their own lives and when they're unhappy with themselves, they can't be happy for anyone else, right? So no matter what you're doing, they're always going to see something wrong with that. And sometimes what happens is your success is a reminder of everything they are not. And that's a tough pill to swallow. swallow, not swallow, swallow. You know, when you look at someone and their lives have completely changed and have taken off and they're doing all these amazing things, and then you look at yourself and you're in that same spot that you've been at for the past 5-10 years, for some people, that's really hard, you know, and that's not your fault, right? Because you've been busy creating the life of your dreams and they haven't. But they won't ever know how to be happy for you. And so if you find yourself in situations like that, then you have to make tough decisions, because those people, all they're going to do is try to bring you down. And for someone who, you know, is on their way up, the last thing you need is someone trying to pull you back or keep you back. Springtime is also a really great time to do a health check, right? And I think that this is something so many of us neglect, and it isn't only until we get sick that we decide we're going to focus on our health, right? So how about we shift our thinking and we do things a little bit different starting now, right? And just do a health check. Go to your doctor, make an appointment, even if you don't feel sick, right? You don't want to wait until you get sick to try to get better. You want to be healthy and you want to stay healthy, and you want to make sure that you're doing things that are going to keep yourself healthy. You know, so do an assessment. How are you feeling physically, right? Have you scheduled your annual checkup? If you haven't, this is a good time to do that, right? And you get checked from head to toe. Make sure everything is A1, right? Look at yourself in the mirror. Are there things you haven't been attending to? You know, is there something that bothers you when you look at yourself? And I'm just talking about yourself right now. How you look at yourself, how you view yourself, how you feel when you look at yourself. Not what others think about you, not nobody else's opinion about how you look or how you should look or none of that, but really how you feel about yourself. And if there are things that you're not happy about, then figure out what you're going to do to change that, right? Because I know a lot of times how we feel about ourselves on the inside manifests in how we look on the outside. So if there's something that's going on with you that you're just not happy with, this is a good time to start working on that and start, you know, investing the time and the resources into fixing it so that you feel 100%, you look 100%, and that you are healthy from the inside out, not just on the outside. You want to be healthy on the inside. Also, this is a good time to make a list of your life priorities. What have you been putting off, right? That maybe you've been wanting to do or you've been making excuses about and has kind of paralyzed you from really going towards what you want, right? Have you been putting off that much needed vacation or time off because of other obligations? You know, that is real. I know people who haven't taken vacations in years. And guys, I will tell you, you need to take time off. And even if you don't go away somewhere, you don't have to fly somewhere, but there are so many things you can do locally, right? And for cheap, you just have to be creative, do your research, you know, and maybe it's just a weekend getaway, you know, rent an Airbnb or go to a bed and breakfast, go, you know, somewhere, rent a cabin, you know, the Jersey Shore. I mean, there's so many things that you can do locally, but the important thing is that you take some time off for yourself, away from work, where you're not doing anything but really just being with yourself and re-energizing and refueling your tank so that you come back and you're refreshed and you're able to operate at 100%. Check in on your career goals also. Something else you should be doing this time of year, right? We're in April. Many of you, attended vision board workshops in January. We're 3 months in. The first quarter of the year has ended. Where are you with your goals? Are you on track? Are you falling behind? If so, this is a good time to kind of refocus and figure out, okay, what is it that I need to do from here on in to make sure by the end of the year I accomplish my goals? Okay, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, do a finance audit on your finances and your financial position. What are you spending your money on? What are your bills and expenses? What are you spending on extracurricular activities? How much are you spending? Do you even have a budget? Like, do you know how much money is coming in and how much money is going out on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? A lot of us don't. We just spend. We don't even realize how much money we're spending until we go look and we see we have no money, right? But this is a part about growing up. You have to take control of your finances, and you should know to the penny how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. Declutter your closet. I can't even begin to tell you how much junk I have in my closets. Not just one, but closets. And my husband and I were actually getting ready to rent a dumpster within the next couple of weeks because we are going to do a really good spring cleaning and just declutter this house from top to bottom. Because hoarding is a very real thing. And it's really about just keeping yourself organized, and making sure that you're not holding on to things that no longer serve you. And that is true for feelings, right? Maybe you're harboring resentment towards someone. Maybe you're holding a grudge on someone that has hurt you or disappointed you. Let that shit go. Because I will tell you that is doing you more harm than the person you have a grudge on. You're the one that's walking around with all of that heaviness. And the best thing you can do for yourself is to just release it and let it go. Because holding on to it is not serving you. You're not getting anything out of being angry at someone. Sometimes it just requires you to forgive, even if what you think they've done is unforgivable. But forgive them and let it go. Not that you have to ever have them in your life again, but holding on to anything that does not serve your greater good is absolutely pointless. So now this week, these are my tips for spring cleaning and decluttering your life. But I'm going to have, I'm going to go live on Instagram, and we're going to talk about one of these specific tips that I mentioned on this podcast. And we're really going to get a little bit more in depth. And I will be taking your questions. So if there's anything that you want me to answer on my Instagram live and on my Facebook live, make sure to either shoot me a direct message on Instagram at I am Nancy Ruffin, or send them to me via email. And that's going to be at info@nancyarroyoruffin.com. You can also head to my IG page and just click on the email tab, and that will automatically connect you to my email. And I'll be more than happy to answer your questions live. So until next time, mi gente, Make sure you go out there and you crush some goals.